Hi everyone, how exciting. I don't often do a live chat on my Facebook page, but today is an exception because I really want to introduce you to my friend and colleague Dr. Jackie Montefiore, who's here with me today. We have been friends now for a little while, 18 months or so, when I was really lucky to have Jackie come on as a guest on my podcast, and we connected and have been friends ever since. And I'm in Melbourne as a health coach, as you know, and Jackie is a GP in Brisbane. And over the last 6, 7, probably 8 months now, Jackie and I have been working together on an online lifestyle change program called the Sante Circle. And Jackie provides a lot of the science and knowledge behind why low carb in terms of health. And I pop in every now and again with some coaching on how to help, make all those changes happen, which, as we know, can be quite challenging. So, I just wanted to introduce you to Jackie, and she recently did a podcast on her own podcast talking about why low carb, and I just thought the information was fantastic and wanted to share it with you. So welcome, Jackie. Thanks for coming to chat.
Thank you for having me, Tracy. Always a pleasure.
It's a long introduction, but do you want to give a little bit of info about you and what you do up there?
Yes, sure. So I'm up in Brisbane, like you said, and I run my own GP practice called Sante Medical. So I'm a GP by trade, and that's what I identify myself as. But I suppose what's a little bit different to me compared to other GPs is I've got a background in nutrition and dietetics as well. So I worked as a dietitian for a number of years before I went back to medical school and studied medicine. So I had that background of, working with, say, people struggling with weight and other health conditions from a diet point of view. So that was definitely really interesting. Although the techniques I used then to try and help people were, as it turns out to be, not particularly helpful for most people. But then in more recent years, I came across the whole low carb nutrition side of things and the science that supports all of that, which has just been a real eye opener. And gradually over the last, say, 3 or so years, I've incorporated more and more of that into my practice with patients and, of course, with myself. And, noticed obvious benefits and simultaneously looking more into the science behind it and realizing that it's genuinely should be an option for some people. And so now my mission, if you will, is to present that as an option to more people, or as many people as I can, not to force it upon people, but to present it as an option if people want to go down that path.
So what was your low carb journey? How did you actually, personally come across it, and, how did it look for you when you made the switch?
Yes, so it's interesting. I'll try and be brief, but I knew of low carb back in my dietitian days in the form of the Atkins diet. And I remember being at a dietitian's conference where it was mentioned or spoken about, and it was widely recognized within the room and the senior dietitians there that the Atkins diet can work well to reduce blood pressure and people's waist measurement, and people do lose weight. But it was always dismissed because of the fat content, and the effect on cholesterol was perceived to increase the cardiovascular risk. So I was certainly aware of it then, but always thought of it as like a fad. And whenever I heard people were doing it, I always just had it in my mind like that can't possibly be sustainable long term, and just had it in that bucket, I guess, in my mind. And I only genuinely embraced it as a realistic and sustainable long-term option when I was having my own struggles losing pregnancy body fat. and I had gained a lot of weight in both of my pregnancies, over 20 kilograms each one, not added to each other, but each time. And very close to gestational diabetes in my first pregnancy. Had really big babies, around 4 kilograms. So clearly a bit of metabolic issues going on there, and really struggled to lose weight, and was finding it harder and harder as the years went on to do that, and just felt really silly given my background in nutrition and dietetics. I was like, come on, I'll write myself a low calorie meal plan, and why can't I just stick to it? So then I'd ask my dietitian friends, can you write me a meal plan and I'll try and stick to it? But I just found I couldn't do it for various reasons. Was getting hungry, mainly, was kind of becoming obsessed with food. I would be always trying to plan my next meal, thinking, when can I eat again, and when's morning tea, and that sort of stuff, and just on that roller coaster. And then I don't even know how. Oh yes, it was the whole Gary Fettke story of him getting into a bit of strife with APRA that drew my attention to look at what was happening there, and that caused me to, I guess, look more deeply into what he was recommending and the science behind it. So that's kind of what opened the door for me there. So I must thank Gary Fettke, and I have done, for kind of running through that fire to sort of really genuinely open my eyes up into having a genuine look into what it was about. Then, of course, trying those principles on myself, completely skeptical on a whim when I was away with my family on holidays in Noosa. So just decided to omit the toast for breakfast and not have the carbs, and just basically started it like that. Went through the whole symptoms that people get once they swap to a low carb, high fat diet, but eventually found my way through that, found energy levels improved, and then baby weight that I was struggling so much to lose just effortlessly was coming off. Seeing those results then within myself then prompted my kind of scientific mind to dive more into the science behind it and the evidence that supported, why it can work so well and that it can improve people's metabolic markers. So yeah, that's a bit of a long story. I'm sorry, but that's how
not at all.
I haven't looked back since, and yeah, I've been using it on my patients ever since to some degree.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think from a lot of people it is the weight loss that attracts initially us to it, but it, of course we know the benefits are just so far beyond that. So you said in the beginning that you have it as an option.
And on that, Tracy, can I?
Yeah.
Can I say? Sorry to interrupt you.
No.
Aside from the weight loss, noticed a whole bunch of other beneficial effects. Like I used to previously get migraines from time to time, and noticed they essentially went away. Bowel function improved. All these other benefits that you just don't even think of. So I mean, I always say to people come for the weight loss and stay for the extra physical benefits that they notice on a low carb, high fat diet.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, it was the weight loss initially too, but the biggest thing I think for me was the brain fog. I didn't even realize, I was very tired. I didn't have a lot of energy, when I was in that, stage before I found, low carb. But I didn't even realize I was kind of like I was living in this brain fog all day, and that lifting was such a big thing for me. So I know, everyone talks about, so many different benefits other than the weight loss. But you were saying in the beginning that you have it as an option for some people. So in terms of talking about the why low carb, like who would be some of the people that might benefit from looking into this lifestyle a little bit more?
Well, generally, the science tells us that the people who tend to do the best are people with some degree of metabolic dysfunction. And by that, I mean an element of insulin resistance. But the little known fact is that most adults in Australia and really any Western country have an element of insulin resistance. And so that's not really widely recognised, and they may or may not notice that, or their doctor might not appreciate that to the degree that they probably should. And we just, you know, as doctors, we see this story play out, you know, a lot in our practice. We sort of, as a GP, we have the privilege of having this kind of cradle to grave. We have a lot of continuity of care with our patients, which is about my most favorite part of my job. But you can see over time is that, you know, people might slowly gain weight in adulthood through their 30s and 40s. And then as they hit their 40s, they might start to notice, you know, a few high blood pressure readings when they go get it checked with their doctor. And then, you know, then into their 50s, things might look a little funny on their bloods, like their blood sugar might look on the high side, their liver function test might not quite look normal. But the sad thing is that often it's dismissed or downplayed, unfortunately, by their GP, just because not, you know, anything malicious that the GP is doing. It's just a lack of understanding of these early signs of insulin resistance. And so certainly for people that is the case for, and to be honest, it's the majority. Some aspects, some sources say at least 2/3 of the adult population have a degree of insulin resistance. So for those people, it's just worthwhile trialing at least a low carbohydrate, high fat approach and just see if that's going to be a method that helps improve some of those metabolic markers. And then, of course, you know, as we see, often weight loss is a welcome side effect. But my personal view is that I don't really care what someone weighs in front of me. I don't care really about their gravitational pull to the earth. I care about how long and happy and productive their life is going to be, and how, you know, how much they'll be able to appreciate that time with their family and friends and loved ones. And so that's where that whole metabolic health comes into it, from my point of view, is really optimizing that, you know, for people's longevity and health span, not just their lifespan. So I tend to, I guess, be a bit biased or more strongly recommending of a low carb approach for a few reasons. I find that it's generally under recommended by most doctors and dietitians. So sometimes people just aren't even aware it's a genuine option to try. And there's also a lot of bias in the media against low carb diets for a number of reasons that we probably won't get to dive into in completeness today. But that bias just kind of paints it in a bit of a bad light. And so I feel pretty strongly about trying to correct some misconceptions about low carbohydrate diets as well. And again, as part of that, offering it as an option to patients.
Yeah. Well, I agree, and you know, I do agree completely too that there's so many misconceptions out there, and it isn't necessarily painted in a very good light, and that's part of what I do too. And you know, of course, we've got this low carb summit, you know, happening, you know, which is so positive in that there's so many amazing people and women. This is women, female focused, in the space every day, you know, living and breathing and teaching this. And it isn't woohoo. It's not like, you know, unscientific. It's very well scientifically proven. And, you know, I think when we take away agendas of a lot, you know, that are out there, and we just look at the science, it's very, very, you know, there's no argument, you know, against it really. No. So, and of course, you know, personally, we know many people whose, you know, health has turned around completely with it. And, you know, we are living longer, but it's our quality of life that is the differential. I mean, we can be kept alive for many years with pills, and, you know, with, you know, what sort of quality of life, you know, are we having? I think that's the big difference there. And that's certainly, you know, for me with my mum, you know, I was lucky enough to help her switch at 73, I think she was, when she first switched. And I mean, you know, from being on blood pressure medication for most of her adult life and all these other things going on, I mean, she's reversed all of that and lost weight without even trying. And then now she's 75 and, you know, feels good, lots of energy. And hopefully, you know, it's that quality that's going to really, you know, change with mum. So
that's great.
Yeah, it is great. So the Sante Circle, what was the idea, your idea behind sort of starting up something like that, and what does that offer people?
Okay, so the Sante Circle is, as you know, Tracy, it's an online program that you and I have set up. And it was basically done from a place of wanting to park all of this knowledge and information I've gathered over the decades into one spot and organize it in such a way that people can focus on certain areas at a certain time, depending on where they are in their journey, I guess, to what would be their ideal health. So, for example, some people, like just in my practice, some people will come in and see me, and another doctor's referred them to come and see me, and they have absolutely no idea, have never heard of the concept of carbohydrate restriction and embracing natural fats, and cannot get their head around, you know, how that goes so far opposite to the mainstream nutrition advice that essentially is still pervading the system at the moment. So that's a very different story for me to kind of completely go back to explaining fairly complicated concepts like insulin resistance and the role of insulin and other hormones in how and why our body stores fat, because that whole conversation, it's becoming more widespread now in, you know, thanks to people like you and others sharing this information on, you know, social media and the internet. But, you know, if people aren't looking for that information, they're just not going to be aware of it. And there's so many people who are unaware of it. So there's that group of people. And so there's part of that education within the Sante Circle where we explain the rationale of why a low carbohydrate diet works, some of the history and politics of why it's not widely recommended at the moment, just so people can understand that and direct them to some great resources that dive into all of that a lot deeper. But then there's also some people who will come and see me who are very familiar with the low carbohydrate diet. They've done it for a period of time, and they might have, you know, hit a stall or not quite, or had a bit of weight regain, or not quite reached the goal that they're looking for, or some other issues are coming up. So I will see that situation as well quite frequently in my practice. So probably that's the majority of the types of patients I see at the moment. And again, it's a bit different then in that situation, what information and actions you're going to be focusing on to kind of get you past that point. It's going to be completely different than if you're what I call low carb naive, in that you've never heard of it, your body is a sugar burner. And so it's a completely different set of priorities that we're trying to do then as compared to someone who's a seasoned low carber, but just having a few hiccups. And so the Sante Circle, I've tried to organise that within, you know, addressing each of those stages. So a person could go in, log in and go through the lessons and the workbooks that address wherever they are at the moment, with the goal of kind of getting them then to the next step along the journey. But doing that within the context of weekly live coaching. And so, as you know, we generally run that within the private Facebook group that we have for the Sante Circle. And you and I, Tracy, we alternate who is live each week. And it kind of goes like I will on my week address some of the sort of logistic, sort of physiology, science-based questions that might come up, and you tend to address the sort of self-sabotage or some of the motivational, psychological barriers that people might have. And so that alternates. And then at the moment, we've got an element of once a month, people can do some one-on-one short coaching to answer a question with you one-on-one once a month. So yeah, so it's basically that combination of having the information available plus the support then within the live group to help people then implement that. And because the thing is, people obviously, life happens, and crazy things like coronavirus, even though it's a 1 in 100 years event, life throws us curveballs is is the point. So that's not going to stop as life goes on. It's unrealistic to think that, things are going to be dandy and we'll be able to, have everything in our control, because it's not. It's not in our control. To a degree. So we need to have the armory, or the ways of thinking about these things that can help us stay on the path to getting to where we want to be in terms of good health.
Yeah, that's right. But it's important to know that you are not their doctor. Like, some of the people in the circle might be your patient, but you don't, everyone, who comes along to the circle can be anywhere. It's a not fully online program, but that they still need to have their own doctor, that that you're not replacing that. So that's, really important for people to know that.
Yes. Super important. Thank you, Tracy. Yeah. Yes, that's a very, very good point. And part of the education I give in the Santo Circle is what tests you could ask your doctor for, and how you can approach the conversation with your doctor, and what tests are, I suppose, high yield or will give us a lot of information, what tests are, might be interesting to have but not essential. But some people who are very data driven will go for those. But exactly right, I can't, within this context, I can't give one-on-one medical advice, and so that's definitely not what it's about. But it is kind of handy in that some of the patients who come in and see me, it makes my job a bit easier on a day-to-day basis, that I've pre-told them the things I would have normally told them in the consultation. So it saves a bit of time in that sense, which is good on both ends.
Absolutely. So I am going to put all the information down below in case anyone's interested in checking it out, because it is a long-term program, because you and I know that this doesn't happen quickly. Change is quite slow, and there's a 2-step forward, 1 step back type thing, and the support is there. We encourage people to sign up for a year, but it's a monthly, month-to-month thing, and it is a very, very reasonable price, because you and I both really just want the opportunity for people to have this opportunity to to see something new around all of this. So is that right? Is there anything else you want to add just around that, or?
I think that pretty much covers it. Yeah, you're right. Like, with regards to the price, we have tried to keep that low, and the way it's priced at the moment, I don't know of any other program or membership that offers an element of one-on-one coaching for such a reasonable price. And to be honest, it probably won't be able to stay that way forever, but that's how it is at the moment. And obviously, anyone who joins now will, be able to have the same terms moving forward as long as they're a member. So that's an advantage of joining now rather than later.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I absolutely love, being involved in the program with you, and it is such a great program. I know, having been close to a lot of the people who are in it, they've seen dramatic changes, and really, having been on dieting cycles for many, many years, have been able to step off that and into, embrace just a completely different way of thinking about food, and no more dieting. So, the potential is amazing, and that's why I think we talk about it as much as we do. So, yeah, thank you for what you do, and it's great to do this with you, and thanks for coming and chatting today to my little group. And if anyone has any questions, just write them in the comment below, and Jackie and I can answer those questions. But thanks so much.
Tracy will have to read me out the questions, but but thank you, Tracy. Of course, the feeling is mutual. I feel so lucky to have you in the Sante Circle, helping to, you know, deliver it to people and help people out. And obviously we are offering two different bits of it, but it's so great to have your input in offering that coaching and support. So can't thank you enough.
Oh, awesome. Well, thanks, Jackie. Enjoy the rest of your day, and yeah, we'll see you soon.
Okay, see you later. Bye.
Bye.